You're listening to the Staging Sips podcast with Lori Fisher. This podcast is dedicated to helping real estate staging CEOs build healthy businesses that grow, flow, and thrive. Today, we're going to be diving into kind of the thing that actually nudged my business past into my first five-figure month. I was gonna say six-figure, not a six-figure month, five-figure month. And it was interesting. It was the thing that when I did that, I said to the person who helped me get there, I was like, it's so weird because I feel like I worked so much less. So I want to share that with you today. I'm going to give it another minute for people to kind of start popping in because I know we'll start seeing some more people. But this is a topic that I crack up because I geek out about it so much. I was not somebody who actually really intuited systems and things like that. So I have come to really, really love them. And I'm going to share how you can get started with them as well. I was listening to a really interesting podcast about a lobster fisherman who went overboard in the middle of the night off of the coast of Long Island. And his shipmates, there were two of them, they were both sound asleep. And they did not know that he had fallen overboard in the middle of the night. He was doing some work and the back of those boats are open. He slipped right off into the water. So by the time they realized, several hours had passed. And I thought it was so fascinating because they called out to the Coast Guard. And my first thought was the Coast Guard is just going to immediately dispatch ships and helicopters and all of that. And what this story talked about was how the Coast Guard had a very specific process and system that they went through before they ever sent anybody out on the water or in the air to do any kind of rescue. There was mapping and there was data, but it was an actual process. The second thing that they did that helped save this fisherman's life was that they spoke to his shipmates and they said, walk me through what your process is on your boat so that we know, we can guess what time he went into the water. And it was so interesting to hear that he said that they do the same things the same way every time on their boat. So while they originally thought he fell into the water at 11:30 in the evening, what they realized was that he hadn't, because based on the evidence on the boat, it appeared that he was doing an activity that would have happened much later than that when they hit a certain point in the water. And so because of that system and that process, they actually were able to identify and hone in on where he could possibly be. And it ultimately saved his life. And I thought, whoa, that is so amazing. And that's one of the things that in our businesses, a lot of times we don't think about how to create a system or a process. And ultimately, honestly, they save our businesses because there is so much wasted time and energy and effort on not doing things in a systematic way every time you go to do them. So let's dive in and talk a little bit about that. So the first thing is, what is a system? A system is basically a scaffolding around any of the activities that you do on a repeated basis. So things like, for example, your marketing. You can create a system around your marketing. The way you respond to client inquiries. So the way that you email, the way that you take them through a process. You can systematize what you actually do in your service delivery. And I talk a lot about that in my book, Sell Your House in 72 Hours, and then the accompanying course that goes along with that. That's really just describing the system that I have when we go into someone's house to do an occupied staging consultation. Think about things like if you're blogging, is there a system around that? What are the steps that you go through every time? So that's kind of like the broad brush of what a system is. What it can do for you, though, is it can leverage your time. And one of the things that we know in the staging business is that we are always having to leverage our time, especially when we are a team of one, right? If we are a company directory of one person, we're wearing a lot of hats and we're doing a lot of the service delivery on, ourselves. So it's like we're the technician and we're also the CEO and the chief marketing officer and all of that, all wrapped in one. So we really have to be effective at leveraging our time. having a system can help you do that. One of the things that I talk about is that literally every time I would sit down to onboard a new client, I would go, oh, you know what? I should send them a note about what to expect at our appointment. And I would write that up in an email form and I would send it out. And I kept doing that, forgetting that I'd already created it. And I had actually already created a document about it. I saw somebody recently refer to this as your document graveyard. And I had a large one of those behind the scenes of my business for a very long time. So what it did was it really had me spinning my wheels unnecessarily for quite a long time. So I want to help you avoid that. And again, you can put a system around pretty much anything you do in your business. And I would look at it like the departments. A few weeks ago, I talked about the departments in your business, your sales and marketing department, your finance department, and your service delivery department. Okay, so those are your kind of key departments. I actually talked about 5 of them in that training, and you can go back and look at that from a couple of weeks ago. But you want to see what systems you can put in place around every single one of those. So the first thing you actually have to do is identify the business activities that you do repeatedly, because this is where the leverage comes in. It's with those things that you do over and over and over again that you can begin to create a system around. So identify what those are. We just talked about that. So things, again, like client onboarding, your marketing, how you do your finances, how you sit down and look at your finances, what reports do you run? What do you keep track of? How do you keep track of it? When do you check in with, clients and follow up? How do you pull inventory for a vacant staging? How does it get packed and delivered and cleaned up and all of that? All of that can be systematized, but you've got to think about those things that you're doing repeatedly, how you can begin to put some structure around them. So that's the first thing that I'm going to have you do, is just start thinking about those things that you do repeatedly. And then the next thing that you do is you need to actually break down that activity in its finest little minute points, right? So you want to do, I used in the beginning before I knew about something like Asana. Asana is a fabulous tool for project management. I used a Google document. I do not recommend you do something on your computer, like using Microsoft Word or something like that, because the challenge with that is that it gets housed in your computer. And if you've ever experienced, like I did, a crashing of your computer where you lose everything, you will learn very quickly that is not the place to store everything. So I recommend a Google Drive document or Asana, and start to map out the minute steps that you go through. So let's use a blog, for example, if that's something that you want to create a system around. So you want to put in something about, there's going to be research, there's going to be idea generation. You're going to want to look up keywords that you want to use in that. You want to create your title. What are your images? And you can map all of that out so that when you sit down to write a blog post, okay, I'm going to start with my title or research, then my title, and then I'm going to make sure I incorporate these keywords throughout. You're going to want to think about what's the call to action. So you want to put that in. All of that is to both give you the roadmap, but the reminder of those things that you need to do. So I always think if we can create a system around making a hamburger for McDonald's, we can create a system pretty much around anything. So that's what you want to do. You want to think about mapping out like the process involved, the tools that you might need. So do you need, if you're creating a blog, do you actually need to have a WordPress account? Do you need to set up an account with something like medium.com in order to get a blog out? What are the tools that you might need? Do you need to know where to look for keywords? Do you not know that? The next thing is people. Do you need any people to help you do this? So in my case with my blog, I relied on, for a very long time, my friend who is a virtual assistant concierge service, who helped me get my blog out every week. And so we had a very specific form that I would fill out every week that enabled her to do that. So for me, a step would be, filling out the form to hand over to Kelly to give to her team so that I could get my blog posted. So maybe it's you need a person for that. Then you want to think about your strategies. Again, that's your call to action. That's your, if the strategy is to answer questions that a client might have ahead of time or help them prepare better. If we're talking about client onboarding, you want to think about what that outcome is. So that's the way that you begin to do it. And you create it in an outline form. And then if you do it in a Google Doc, the cool thing is, like, for example, if we're talking about the blog again and that form that I would fill out, all I need to do is open that system and I can have that form that I fill out linked in my outline for my system. So everything is right there for me. I don't need to go looking anywhere else. That's the beautiful thing about using something like Asana or Google Drive, is that you can link every single document that you need. So in our business, when we do a client onboarding, there's a very specific step that we go through, and there's a welcome letter, and then there's also some extra goodies that we like to give them, checklists and things like that. And in our Asana task, our project manager, there's a task that has the email already created that will go out with those links in it to those documents, so that all that needs to happen is a copy and paste situation for my assistant. So it just saves so much time. So that's the first thing, breaking it down. You're going to break it down, your activities. The next thing is you're going to try this out. You're going to implement a system. So in the beginning, I mapped out in Asana, that's what I chose to use in Asana, every single one of the steps that we had for a client onboarding process. So we had from the very initial phone call, what got sent to them next, how many days later did they get, X deliverable, how many days later with all of the links. And then we just ran with it and we tried it out. And what we realized was that we were doing a follow-up call about 3 days after our appointment. And we thought that might be better served to go out a day or two later than that, just because we would reach out to people and they'd say, oh, I haven't had a chance to look into the report yet or get going. So we kind of tweaked and changed that. We've tweaked and changed the timing that we send follow-up emails and the kinds of follow-up emails that we send, because we were getting people who were like, yep, I got it, I don't need any more information. And, that was sent 10 days later. So we thought, okay, we'll condense the time in which those emails go out. So you just want to start to tweak and work things. Sarah says, Asana's been going well for mapping out the vacant staging process. I'm struggling to find a shared calendar. Do you recommend Asana or Google or anything else for the team? We use Google Suite for everything. We use the business Google, I guess it's business Google for that. And so that is the way that we do shared calendars. And it's amazing. And that was another thing that came out of the work with my productivity person, was that joint calendar. I did not know we needed one. So I highly recommend it. Even if you have one other person on your team, to be able to see where they are, what they're doing, for them to be able to see where you are and what you're doing is really, really valuable. So yes, Sarah, I would recommend Google Calendar for that. It's a great, great tool. And then, of course, it's right there when you're working in Gmail. When you're working in Google Drive, it's really easy to just pull that up and open it. Excuse me. The next level in your systems, once you've kind of mapped out what your system looks like, you've started to tweak and improve it. The next thing is, how can you actually take steps out or automate them? That's kind of the final step of this. Because what you'll find is you might have mapped out every little detail in the middle, but that you don't need all of it, or it gets a little confusing, or it's too many steps. It's very possible to create a system that is too overwhelming. So you want to create a framework, but create one that is manageable and doable. So once you've had the time to kind of see things in play, tweak them a little bit, you can definitely revisit it and look at, and like I have told a lot of my students, we just revisited our process for our in-person staging consultations, our styling evaluations, and we just decided we were going to automate all of the emails that go out to a client before that appointment and after that appointment. But that's after, years of trial and error and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work. But it's one more way to take something off of your plate, take something off of your assistant's plate, and let technology work for you. So kind of 3 steps for once you've kind of spent some time with it is you can automate, you can delegate. So you can decide, okay, this is now something I can hand off to somebody else to do. You can consolidate. So you can say, okay, we don't need 50 steps to onboard a client. We probably just need 3 very effective ones. Here's what seems to work best. And you can move from there. And then you can defer. You can decide, okay, Maybe this isn't something I want to focus on right now. We'll continue to do it, but maybe it's something you think isn't quite right, but you're just not sure how to fix it. And we just did that recently with something in our business as well. One of the follow-up calls we want to offer, we wanted to change the way we do it. And we decided let's defer and not get that rolling quite yet until we have a little more information under our belts. So again, going back to your kind of revisiting it and seeing it work in real time, automate, delegate, consolidate, and defer. And then the last thing is just cleaning it up and improving it and recognizing that a system is a dynamic, fluid process, that it will take time and it may change. And my team and I were just talking about this the other day. We just made a change in the way we're tracking time. And we were just, patting ourselves on the shoulder for being very good at being flexible because what we have done over time is just noted what's worked, noted what doesn't, and then decide we're not going to spend too much time making sure, too much time on something that doesn't feel like it's working. Let's find a new solution. And so that's where you can come. And that's really kind of the exciting part of creating these systems, is getting to a place where you know every single time what it's going to look like. And in our business, we have really gotten to that on our the way we set up all of our services and the way we stay in touch with people, and then also with the way that we do our marketing. And it's a really cool place to be once you get there. But just know that it takes time, just like everything else. But I think the important thing is for you, if you have not created systems or you're new to business and you didn't know that you needed to create systems, that you know now that they are really important. They are something that you should be thinking about and something that can really help you in the long run. So systems, let's scaffolding for your business. Really important to begin thinking about the tasks that you do on a repeated basis. And start mapping out what's the process that you go through, what are the people you need, what are the tools you need in place in order to get those done and get those set up for yourselves, and then begin to just roll with it. Give it a try. Imperfect action, right? We talk about this all the time, and everything that you can take imperfect action on is going to get you to failure or success a lot faster, and it will be so much better for your future self and your future business if you are just willing to give this a try. All right, everybody, have a fabulous rest of your week. I will talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Staging Sips podcast. If you love what you've learned here today and you want to learn more about how to market and grow your staging business more strategically, I would love to see you join us inside of the RethinkYou mentorship program. If you want more details and get on our waiting list, you can go to rethinkhomeinteriors.com/waitlist. Looking forward to seeing you in the classroom.